welcome to Perception Media. I am your hostess, the Cinegeek, and today we're going to be talking about the chilling adventures of Sabrina Season 2. I have done a comparison between the comic book and the first season in a video, which I'll have linked on one of those corners. And then I've also done blog posts individually on the comic book and individually on the first season, and I do have a one-up now of the second season. If you'd like to read that, they'll all be linked below. Alright. So we begin this season with Sabrina kind of going down and accepting the path of night and deciding to transfer from her high school in Greendale, Baxter High, over to the Academy of Unseen Arts. And there she's going to really want to play into her position, and she tries to become head boy up against Nicholas, who, if you remember from the first scene, is the kid who's all into conjuring and necromancy. Yeah. And so they have to go through these competitions to see who's better, and honestly, there's a lot of really heavy-handed feminism throughout the whole season that I don't think really played well because it's so over the head. And with this particular one, I mean, the message is supposed to be females deserve any position that males deserve and are equally capable of being successful in it. However, to win, which she doesn't, but to win, Sabrina cheats, which totally undermines the message and kind of pisses me off. But anyway, Blackwood ends up deciding that neither of them should have the position of head boy and gives it to Sabrina's cousin, Ambrose, who was my favorite person in the first season, was not my favorite person in this season. That goes to Hilda. She is mood and she is a boss, and I would never eat that woman's cooking, ever. So Sabrina and Nicholas do end up dating, and I love it. And it kind of, it's going to be a thorough line, I think, for Season 3, and a very, very important aspect of Season 3. But we'll get to why that is towards the end of the review. Meanwhile, Roz and Harvey kind of start to date, which I like the way they handled that transition from Sabrina and Harvey's romance to Sabrina and Nicholas's and Roz and Harvey's romance. I think they did a very good job on that, and it does make a lot of sense for the characters. And Miss Wardwell, aka Lilith, and I'll refer to her as Lilith throughout the rest of the review, becomes principal. Meanwhile, Susie decides to live fully as a boy and changes his name to Theo, which I love that name, and not because it's my puppy's name. Because it's my puppy's name. So Lilith is like really dissatisfied in her position at Greendale and Baxter High and with the Dark Lord. So Lilith and Lucifer end up making a bet that Sabrina isn't loyal to him. So Lucifer just asks her to steal a pack of gum to show that she is, in fact, loyal, and will do as he wants her to, and as he wills her to. And Miss Wardwell, or Lilith rather, to win the bet, ends up stopping her at every point until the end, where Sabrina nearly burns down Baxter High, and Lucifer thinks, alright, you've proven that you are, you're cool, so you don't have to burn down the school, and I'm going to give you a present. You get to play Lilith in the school play. And keep in mind, no one knows Miss Wardwell is Lilith. And I think that's a really great way to show her backstory with Lucifer, who in the school play is played by Nicholas, to show their backstory without actually showing their backstory. I thought that was creative and fun. However, it's completely undone in the last episode when they showed their backstory with exposition over it. You showed twice and told. There are rules about this for a reason, because you're overdoing it. Also, like, I would say you could probably skip the entire, I think it's the 4th episode, where that's about a fortune teller who is actually Miss Wardwell who is actually Lilith in disguise. You could totally skip it. It doesn't advance the plot, like, at all. And it wasn't even a great episode. Yeah. It was okay. Anyway, so next episode is about this holiday Lupercalia, which was actually celebrated in ancient Greece and is Valentine's Day. It's really creepy that the school has the girls dress up in a lingerie and do like a sexy pole dance. I mean, it's like the maypole with the ribbons, but it's still weird and uncomfortable. And then they do this scene that's like straight out of Little Red Riding Hood, where the girls are all in like the lingerie and the red hoods and cloaks, and the boys are in wolf skins. The shots are really good. The setup, the set design, the framing. They're doing less of like the weird focus they did in the first season that a lot of people didn't like. All this stuff and the editing and the music choices are still really good in this season. Totally solid looking show. The acting is great. It's just some of it's a little, like I said before, it's a bit heavy-handed with their message, and they kind of tend to undo their own message, which I wish they didn't. This particular season, or this particular episode, I really did like because we get more of a backstory on Nicholas, and we learned that, you know, his parents had died, and he was raised by his wolf familiar, Amelia, who Sabrina has to kill because Amelia's trying to kill him because she's jealous. And then we get this really great thing where Miss Wardwell's like the real Miss Wardwell's fiance shows up, and it's Wesley Wadnam Price from Buffy and Angel, and he, oddly enough, is also the other in the Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, I would not have guessed that that was the same dude ever, and I didn't believe it. I still kind of don't, but that's awesome. So she actually ends up falling in love with him, and they're dating throughout most of the season until the Dark Lord finally comes up and kills him and forces Lilith to eat him for dinner, straight up Kriemhild's revenge style. It's a lot. And did I mention Hilda's just a boss and total mood this whole season? And she actually ends up learning that the guy that she liked in the first season, her boss, who's the owner of Cerberus's House of Horrors, is actually an incubus. I thought at the end he was a vampire, but I like that. Little different. You don't see a lot of incubi in TV shows. That's cool. Meanwhile, Zelda gets engaged to Blackwood, but she's really just power hungry. I thought she did love him, but it turns out she just wants the power. And Prudence isn't that different. She's really vying hard to get the Blackwood name, and eventually she will, but that's gonna go sour fast. It gets so weird. I'll get to it. So Sabrina decides that she wants to finish her father's work, and she, with Nicholas's help, finds her father's manifesto, and he has these 5 kind of tenets, and that's mankind and witches share common destiny, witches and mortals should mingle, have babies. Lilith, as the mother of was the mother of demons, and so witches should be honored as the matriarch of the Church of the Night. Magic is the Dark Lord's gift to use for pleasure, gain, and to satiate the senses. That's important. I'll come back to that one. And then mortals and witch unions will usher in the era of Morningstar. Morningstar is the name of Lucifer. And I'll get back to that one too, because it doesn't make any sense at all. So this guy, the Anti-Pope, comes, played by Laura Palmer's dad, Ray Wise, to marry Zelda and Blackwood. And he ends up getting killed, and it's pinned on Ambrose. And because of all this, Nicholas and Sabrina are expelled. Then the next episode, the kid from Glass, Spencer Treat Clark, shows up playing like that kid who's straight up from The Purge. Creepy, smiley, crazy guy. I love it so much. His middle name is Treat, and he is just that. He is spectacular. I wish he was in everything. So he is a witch hunter with a couple of others, and they're actually angels who call themselves the Innocents, and they are trying to get the witches and warlocks to repent, and then they're going to kill them and burn them at the stake. Or, yeah. I should mention, this one character is Dorian Gray, which, in high school, I have the most ridiculous, pretentious book collection, by the way. In high school, this was actually my favorite book, The Picture of Dorian Gray, and I love any show that has Dorian Gray in it. Like, I really like Penny Dreadful, which is another cool show with him, although he was more prominent in that show. One of the angels shoots Dorian Gray, but because of the portrait, he can't die. So he rips the arrow out, and he says, "I'm harder to kill than that," and then stabs the angel with the arrow, and it's so cool! I love it. And, Sabrina ends up going to this church where they have all the other witches and warlock students, and they've actually killed one witch and one warlock when she shows up, and they end up shooting her 3 times in the torso area and placing like a crown of thorns on her head, which is very So, did I mention heavy-handed? Because I wasn't kidding when I said heavy-handed. I was like, okay, they're doing some savior stuff. Is she inverse Jesus? Is she the Antichrist? I'll get to that. So anyway, she ends up being resurrected, or she resurrects herself, and then she starts like floating in the sky, and her eyes are totally white, which looks really cool against her white hair that she's rocking throughout this season. And she ends up bringing back the witch and warlock who were killed from the dead, and then she kills the 2 angels. And after that, she finds that she doesn't really need spells or incantations to do any kind of magic, and she's doing a lot more powerful magic than she had previously been able to do, like changing the weather, healing people, bringing people back from the dead, and performing these things that are miracles even to them. And she calls herself the Dark Lord's Sword, which sounds a lot like Supernatural, how Dean is Michael's sword. And I'll get into that in just a few moments. So, unfortunately for Ambrose, his boyfriend Luke was actually killed by the angel hunters. And this is going to start him on being available to end up, I think it's implied that he's ends up with Prudence, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. So, due to their heroic acts, Nicholas and Sabrina are let back into the church, or the Academy of Unseen Arts and the Church of Night by the council, who is made up of these 5 old guys. And if you think that they're really sexist and power hungry, and there's going to be a Me Too movement moment, you're absolutely right. And did we need all these things? No, we didn't. Was it necessary? Does it advance anything? No. It's just dumb. It's just dumb. Like, I don't mind when stuff has these moments, or even films that are, or TV shows that are entirely about these moments, completely, when done well. When done wrong, or in an immature show, or a show that doesn't really have any real weight to it, it's just so surface level and bad. Anyway, Sabrina discovers, since her resurrection, as I said, she's more powerful, and this allows her to save Ambrose from execution by pretending to conjure up the devil, which was like straight out of the comics what her father does. So then the council decides to not let Blackwood be the anti-pope because they don't think he's fit for it. And that's when he goes crazy and he changes the Church of the Knight's name to the Church of Judas after his son. And he changes a lot of the school's rules and stuff, and he goes totally Old Testament and sexist and, again, heavy-handed, but also it gets kind of weird. And it's not like it's tone deaf or offensive or anything like that, but it's just kind of like, why do you think that's a good idea, bro? That's weird. Anyway, so Sabrina, like I said, is trying to like spread her father's teaching, and she's trying to unite the mortals and the witches and bring them together, which is kind of like a mutants plot. And Harvey and Theo interrupt because they found this mural of Sabrina in the mines, and Sabrina realizes that she is the Herald of Hell, who will be used by Lucifer to usher in the apocalypse. And oh, I forgot to mention that at one point Harvey is telling her that when she got revived, she was like, you know, this is always up here. I didn't have to move this out, but that she's like Phoenix, and he explains the whole Phoenix saga to her. It's 2018. I think we all know the story. Anyway, so Sabrina decides to give up her power to save the world plot, which is super overdone. We've seen it in like every sci-fi TV show where people have powers ever made. It's super unique and original. So she and Ambrose create this Mandrake double so that Sabrina is fully mortal and her double will have all of her powers, which is a good idea. Let me make myself vulnerable and mortal and give all of my powers to just this creature who has no conscience or soul or idea of right and wrong, and it'll be the most powerful whichever. That was a good idea. Whatever happens to you, I don't care anymore. She's killing it. So Nicholas finds this prophecy that tells Sabrina about a shadow girl, which is basically reverse Jesus. What was that about the Antichrist? Nailed it. So basically it's talking about there's 5 things she does, and when she does them, Lucifer will be brought back. And that's an exorcism, which happened in season 1 with Theo's uncle. Raise the Dead, which happened in season 1 with Harvey's brother, and in this season with when she revived those 2 students after the Innocents killed her. or killed them. Crossing into limbo, which he did in season 1, again to get Harvey's brother back. And number 4 is restoring eyesight to the blind, which happened with Roz. When Roz went blind, she gave her eyesight back in this season. And then suicide, and that's happens right at the end of this episode when Sabrina kills her Mandrake self, which is technically her. So that is an act of suicide, and that's when Lucifer's brought back. And this is Supernatural season 4. Literally, it's Supernatural season 4, verbatim. They're not even trying. Anyway, so the Dark Lord has risen from hell, and he's played by Luke Cook, and oh my god, is he good looking. I mean, I don't want to, like, I like shows that let me root for Lucifer. Like, I really like Lucifer on Supernatural. I wish they had done. I like him in the TV show Lucifer. I like it like in any show that I liked him in The Prophecy. Almost any show that has him, I like him. Because they usually kind of make him a really sad character. In this one, he's just a pompous child, but he's a really good-looking pompous child. And I do like he's powerful, but I felt like putting him away in one episode, like being able to defeat him in one episode, was dumb. Like, they should have had to have gone through more. Like, the entire season 3 should be about that. But anyway, we do learn that Edward Spellman is actually not Sabrina's father. Lucifer is Sabrina's father. Again, I'm right on the Antichrist thing, but this is actually a lot more like the comic book, and I was surprised and happy about that. Because in the comic book, Edward, Sabrina brings Harvey back from the dead, and Edward inhabits his body and has some really inappropriate and impure thoughts about Sabrina. Incesty kind of stuff, which is gross and weird. In this season, instead of it being Edward, it's Lucifer who is her father, and he has the same things. Like, he wants to marry her, and it's like, I mean, okay. I thought, like, in my video, I think I said, like, I'm glad they did away with the incest plot line from the comic, and guess I spoke too soon. So, kind of skipping some things, there's shenanigans, they're trying to fight the devil. They end up locking the devil in Nicholas's body, and his body becomes a cage, and Miss Wardwell is now crowned the Queen of Hell, or Lilith, rather, is now crowned the Queen of Hell. She restores Sabrina's powers to her, and she takes Nicholas, with Lucifer inhabiting him, back into Hell, which the gates of Hell are actually at the mines where the mural of Sabrina was. And at the end, I mean, everyone kind of gets a happy ending. Theo was rocking this season. Zelda is now the High Priestess of the Church of the Night. Blackwell left with his 2 twin children. He got his daughter back, and he wants them to get married, which is incest. Why is there so much incest and cannibalism? I don't get it. It's not... No. Anyway, so Prudent, he leaves. Oh, because I forgot to mention what he did. He poisoned all the kids in the Church of the Night, specifically the Academy of Unseen Arts, straight up Jonestown style. That's what I was saying. It's not tone deaf. It's just... No. Why? So anyway, Prudence decides she wants to get revenge on him, as does Ambrose, and that's where we see that their relationship is kind of sprouting. And then Sabrina asks Harvey, Roz, and Theo to help her break into Hell and save her boyfriend, referring to Nick. And so I think that's what season 3 is kind of going to be about, assuming there is a season 3, which I do. And that kind of sums it up. Like I said, it's really heavy-handed, but it's still well shot. And I still really like it. I'm interested in it. I'm invested in it. And I forgot to mention in season 1, I didn't realize this, Ambrose was under house arrest because he tried to blow up the Vatican, but he did it on when he was friends with this guy Crowley. And in the comic book, there's this High Priestess Crowley who was Edward's teacher. And I didn't realize this is a reference to Aleister Crowley. And then I looked it up because when I was reading about Aleister Crowley, I thought he sounded kind of like Belasco from Richard Matheson's Hell House. And it turns out that's what's the inspiration for Hell House is Aleister Crowley. Although I don't understand why people are always comparing him to a Satanist, because I have done a lot of research on him, but I did spend about an hour looking up, and I can't find any reference to him having anything to do with Satanism. He seemed like he was more into, like, Egyptian mythology, which has nothing to do with the devil whatsoever. It predates Christianity. So I don't understand that connection that people keep doing, but it's there. Did I mention I have a weird book collection? But anyway, I really like the season. I like the Sabrina Nicholas stuff. Hilda is just everything. She's my new favorite character. I hope they bring Luke Cook back. And Spencer Treat Clark was the best thing about this season. I love him. Anyway, I should probably go finish reading The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer. If you have anything you would like me to do a review on, please leave a comment below. I'll be happy to try and do that. If you would like me to do book reviews, I read a lot, and I'd be happy to start doing those too, if anyone's interested in them. Have a great day. We totally need a Moon Knight movie.